I just came across an XRP prediction so wild that I nearly spat out my coffee. Someone is saying that XRP could hit $50 by the end of 2025. $50. Now for context, XRP is around $2 and some change right now. So it sounds crazy, right? Well, here is the twist. The person behind this prediction isn't just some random moon boy on a forum, no. He says it's all about the math and market structure, not hype. And you know what? I think he might actually have a point. Now, I've been holding XRP for years, through all of the ups, the downs, the meme-worthy predictions. I mean, if I had $1 for every time someone swore that XRP was going to $589 overnight, well, I could probably buy a Lambo with that just alone. So when I heard another big claim, or price claim, my skeptic alarm went off. $50 XRP by December. Now, come on. But then I saw who made the claim and the reasoning behind it, and I had to double take. Right? It was a veteran Bitcoin investor who goes by the name Pompeius, and he basically mapped out how XRP could reach $50 if a very specific domino effect plays out. So I jumped into our free Discord, the link by the way is in the description, to see what others thought. Half the people were like, there's just no way, dude. And the other half were cautiously kind of intrigued like I was. Now that kind of got me thinking, is this $50 scenario pure hopium? Or is there actually some real world math making it possible? So I went on a little kind of fact finding adventure, and today I'm going to be bringing you along for the ride. So trust me here, by the end of this story, you might just see XRP's future in a whole new light, or at least have a fun story to tell. So let's get into it. All right, so who is this Pompeius and why is he yelling about $50 XRP? Pompeius isn't just some anonymous Twitter troll. He's known as a long-time Bitcoin investor, the kind of person who's been around the crypto block a few times. Now, when he talks math plus market structure, well, that kind of perks up my ears more than just XRP to the moon, right? Because as an XRP holder, I've heard plenty of to the moon without substance, right? Pompeius actually laid out a scenario, almost like a checklist of how XRP could reach that hefty price tag. And if all starts, or at least I should say it all starts with something big potentially happening in October of 2025. Why October? Well, that's because that is when the SEC, that's the United Securities and Exchange Commission, is set to make a decision on a bunch of spot XRP ETF applications. In fact, 6 major firms have filed to launch an XRP exchange-traded fund. We're talking heavy hitters like WisdomTree, Franklin Templeton, Bitwise. No name kind of companies here, right? These guys all filed their paperwork right after the SEC basically ended its lawsuit against Ripple. You know, the case that had hung over XRP like a dark cloud for years. The timing, it is not a coincidence, right? Ripple got that legal win and boom, here come the ETF filings. It's almost like these companies were waiting for the green light and then all rushed the door at once. Now, the SEC has this calendar with deadlines to approve or reject the ETF proposals. And it turns out a bunch of those deadlines, they cluster in late October 2025. So let's think of it like an XRP ETF judgment day. Pompeius points out that it could be an all or nothing moment. Either the SEC says yes to several XRP ETFs, opening the floodgates, or they slam the door shut on all of them. Now, for our $50 scenario, we obviously need the floodgates open, the all green scenario. But let's assume for a minute that October comes. All right, maybe come October, the SEC gives the nod to these ETFs. What would actually happen next? So this is where the math part of the math plus market structure kicks in. If multiple XRP ETFs launch in Q4, let's say November or so, then suddenly institutional money, big funds, pensions, Wall Street types can pour into XRP easily through these ETFs. Now, we're not talking a few crypto enthusiasts trading on exchanges anymore. We're talking billions of dollars potentially buying XRP now, or at least because now it's as simple as just buying a stock. Now, in fact, insiders estimate that more than $5 billion could flow into XRP via ETFs in just the first month. And by the end of 2025, if those ETFs are successful, that number could grow to $10 to $18 billion in inflows. So let me just repeat that. Up to $18 billion of new money potentially coming into XRP in a short time frame. That is a lot of juice. And here's the thing, right? And this is central to why Pompeius believes that the price could skyrocket. The supply of XRP available to trade is relatively small. Yes, the total supply is 100 billion. About 35 billion is locked away in escrow, held by Ripple and released slowly. And a huge chunk of the circulating supply of XRP isn't even on the market. It's sitting in cold storage or in long-term holder wallets or even parked on exchanges, but not really for sale. So the amount of XRP that truly is up for grabs at any given moment is much less than you would actually think. Now, Pompeius basically says that the market has a thin float, which is fancy talk for not a lot of coins available to buy right now. So if suddenly billions of dollars want XRP, but only a relatively small pile of XRP is actually being sold, what's going to happen? Well, price jump. Hard and fast. It's economics 101. When demand skyrockets and supply is scarce, the only way to balance the two is for the price to shoot up until some buyers back off or more sellers come in. So imagine it like this. You ever kind of see those kind of Black Friday videos where 100 people are trying to grab the 5 flat screen TVs on sale? Well, the store doesn't raise the price in that scenario since it's a sale. But on the open market, if that many people want something and only a few are available, well, buyers keep on bidding higher until most of the crowd is getting squeezed out. Now, that could be XRP if the ETFs unleash that demand shock. And in Pompeius's words, it could create an air pocket move in price, basically a gap between, at least because there's just not enough friction to slow the price from shooting to a new equilibrium. Now, Pompeius isn't just guessing here. He draws parallels to what happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum. So let's think about the timeline then. Before Bitcoin's first big institutional products launched, we saw futures come out. Then ETFs, and those events corresponded with huge price increases historically. So earlier in 2025, we actually saw something rather interesting. Both CME and Coinbase launched XRP futures markets. And that's a big deal because those are regulated platforms. So it's almost like XRP is following the same old playbook that Bitcoin and Ethereum did. First, get legal clarity, Ripple's case resolved. Then get futures going, CME and Coinbase. Next, get ETFs approved. And if that happens, what came after for Bitcoin was a massive price surge. And Pompeius basically says that XRP is set up in a similar way, structurally. So it's not just wishful thinking, it's the same pattern playing out. All right, so let's fast forward to this potential climax then, right? Close your eyes and picture this. Well, unless you're driving, please don't close your eyes then. It's kind of late October 2025. The SEC, in a kind of plot twist that would kind of shock 2022 me, approves not one, not two, but multiple XRP ETFs all at once. So let's say Wisdom Tree, BlackRock, if they ever do jump in, Franklin Templeton Fund, they all get green lights, in the same week, right? The news hits. SEC approves spot XRP ETFs. Crypto Twitter would absolutely go bonkers. I'm glued to my screen. My heart is pounding. Now, the ETF providers are racing to actually buy XRP because If you launch an ETF, you need to hold the underlying asset to back the shares. So these firms start buying millions of XRP literally as fast as possible. At the same time, every hedge fund, every pension fund manager who's been eyeing crypto but couldn't touch it, they suddenly have a safe, regulated way to get XRP exposure. No more worrying about setting up crypto wallets or the legal grey area. They can just buy the ETF in their brokerage account. We could see pension funds, wealth managers, even corporate treasuries all diving in, even if it's just with a small allocation. But small is relative, isn't it? 1% of a multi-billion-dollar fund is tens of millions of dollars. So hopefully you kind of get the idea. Now the price of XRP, starts kind of ticking up and up. $3, $5, $8, people are refreshing their apps in disbelief. Volume is through the roof. Exchanges might end up briefly halting trading if things get too crazy. Who knows? Social media is erupting with XRP to the moon. But this time it's not just retail folk, right? It's also analysts on CNBC talking about this once sleepy cryptocurrency suddenly doing a 10x. Now, is this frenzy? Basic kind of supply and demand dynamics are in overdrive, right? Remember those 35 billion escrowed XRP? Well, they're not on the market. Remember all of the XRP in long-term holders' hands, like yours and mine's and all that? Well, we're not selling, not at first, because who wants to sell when it's shooting up? So the effective supply is, at least at the moment, might actually be even less than normal. So the price has to rise dramatically to convince some holders to start taking profits and to eventually reach a balance. Now, Pompeius's model says with, let's say, $10 to $18 billion of new buying pressure, we could see XRP's market cap go from the $168 billion to $3 trillion. And that's the jump from roughly $2.80 to about $50 per coin. And let me tell you, at $50, even the most diamond-handed XRP holders that I know, the ones who kind of tattooed XRP on their foreheads practically, would actually start thinking, maybe I should sell a little, which is exactly how the market would eventually find a top. Pompeius basically argues that $50 stops being a meme in that scenario and starts looking like a logical outcome of all of these forces colliding. It's a path, not a promise, right? Meaning that if those conditions do happen, $50 is just where the math could lead us. It's not guaranteed to be at least be guaranteed by any kind of magic. Now, I can feel some of you getting a little too hyped. So let me be real, at least reel it kind of in for a second with some real talk. First off, yes, I own XRP and I would be over the moon to see $50. Right? I've held a sizable bag of XRP for years, through thick and thin. So believe me, I want this to happen. But I'm also not delusional. Nothing in crypto is guaranteed, and I am not telling anyone to go out there and market buy XRP right now on the back of one guy's theory. In fact, please don't do that. If you're itching to trade, fine, do your research, take your time. And by the way, if you do trade, I personally use 𝗗𝗀𝘀's crypto exchange and sometimes even BitGet as well. I've got affiliate links in the description for both. Using those links supports the channel, so if you do sign up and trade on it, thank you very much. It's really appreciated if you do. But seriously, there's no FOMO buying sprees, okay? Actually, this is perfect moment to probably for a little kind of sanity check as well. And this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, I'm glad that we got that out of the way. I had to do it. Let's breathe and carry on. So, we've painted a pretty rosy picture, an XRP utopia where everything goes right. But we've got to talk about the other side, right? What if things don't go according to plan? Because plenty of smart folks think kind of Pompeius is just way too optimistic. So let's kind of start with the sheer numbers. A jump from $50, or at least to $50, means XRP's market cap would go from around $168 billion today to roughly $3 trillion. $3 trillion. That's like Apple and Google combined on a good day. So that's nearly the entire market cap of all cryptocurrencies at their kind of peak in 2021, just in one asset. Can that happen in just a year or so? Well, a lot of analysts say no, and that is nuts. Right? Many have kind of flat out kind of pushed back on Pompeius's prediction online, saying that the timeline is far too short. They argue that even if ETFs bring in new money, expecting $10 to $18 billion of inflows so fast might be just wishful thinking. Maybe institutions will dip their toes in slowly rather than cannonballing into XRP. Also, there's the possibility that not all of those ETF applications actually get approved. The SEC could approve one or two, or delay decisions, or even deny them, though denial seems less likely now post-Ripple case, but you never know with the SEC. So if only one small ETF launches, you're not going to be getting $10 billion flooding in, not immediately anyway. There's also macro factors. What if the overall crypto market is flat or crashing in, let's say, late 2025? Well, if Bitcoin is tanking or if there's some kind of global financial crisis, ETFs or not, it's hard to see XRP going against at least 17x against the headwind, right? That's some critics also kind of point out that Pompeius' scenario assumes a kind of perfect storm of mostly just positive events, right? Real life can be a lot messier. Maybe the inflows come, but maybe spread over a couple of years, not all in just 2 months. Maybe a lot of XRP holders like me, or maybe including you, would actually start selling at like $10 or $15 or $20, which could slow down the climb well before $50. Market structure isn't just about up, it's also about where the selling pressure kicks in. And hey, let's be honest, we in the XRP community have been burned by optimism before. I remember the days when people swore XRP would be the next Bitcoin by next Tuesday, only to see it eat humble pie later. So a healthy dose of skepticism is always warranted, right? I'm optimistic and skeptical all at the same time. Is that even possible? Well, I think so, right? It's like I'll believe it when I see it, but I also don't want to completely dismiss it because, well, crazy things do happen in crypto. Now, if you told me in 2016 that a meme coin with a Shiba Inu dog would be worth $40 billion one day, well, I would have laughed at you. Yep, here we are with Dogecoin. So never say never, I guess. Now, here is where I landed after at least going down this rabbit hole. Whether or not XRP hits $50 by December, the fact that this conversation is even happening or is even on the table is pretty huge. It signals that XRP isn't just the bank coin or the one that was always in legal trouble, at least anymore. It potentially graduated to the big leagues. We're talking about institutional adoption in a way that we've never really seen for XRP before. ETFs, futures, big asset managers, this is the kind of stuff that, if you told me during the bear market of 2000 and let's say 18 and 19, well, I'd think that you were dreaming. Now, as someone who's held XRP through some pretty bleak times, it feels validating. Like finally, the rest of the world might be catching on to what we've been speculating about. But at the same time, I'm tempering my expectations. I have my exit strategy plans. You bet that I'll be peeling off a little profit if we do start approaching those crazier numbers. And I also know that if ETFs get delayed or the market doesn't deliver that demand shock, XRP could very well stay in more modest territory for a while. And that's okay too. Now, what I love about Pompeius's analysis is that it kind of gave us a narrative, a plausible story, not just number go up because reasons, but a sequence of events that we could actually watch for. October becomes the kind of suspenseful chapter in this XRP saga. Now, you can bet that I'm going to be on high alert when those SEC decisions come down. And you're welcome to join me and a bunch of fellow crypto nerds in the Discord. We're going to be dissecting every little hint and drop news in real time. The invite is in the description. It's totally free, and it's a great group to hang out with and learn. So, will we get the fairy tale ending with XRP at $50 and me doing a backflip on camera out of sheer joy? Or will it be a more slow and steady journey that tests our patience? Either way, one thing's for sure, it's never boring with XRP. Right? The coming months are going to be insanely interesting to watch. Now, I'm buckled up, right? My XRP is tucked away safely, and I'm ready for whatever happens. So let's be it kind of a rocket to the moon or just another day in crypto paradise. And hey, if nothing else, this whole exercise reminded me why I got into crypto storytelling in the first place. It's part data, part drama, part community craziness, and I'm here for all of it. So if you've enjoyed this little adventure and want to tag along for the next one, don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the next video that's queued up on the screen. I'll see you over there.